I'd like to open our TV Toastmasters Advanced Club 95-23 at this point in time. I'd like to welcome all of our television audience, our guests and members here today. I've really started this time. I'd like to introduce our Toastmaster for today, Steve Ehrenholz.
Thank you, Mr. President, fellow Toastmasters, and our honored guests watching in with us today. Well, we have a really good meeting today. We have 3 manual speeches, and we will also have table topics, which is our opportunity to work on our impromptu speaking. But first of all, what I would like to do is call our club president back up here to give us word power for today. So help me welcome Gordon Kelly. Gordon?
As word power and grammarian responsibility today, I'd like to explain the responsibility of the grammarian, and that is to introduce new words to members and to comment on the use of English during the course of the meeting. At this point, I will introduce a new word, which it seems like it's used in law firms or just in law terms a lot, and the word is onus, O-N-U-S. I can hold that there. The definition, and I'll give you a couple of definitions and uses. Burden, a duty of responsibility. And an example is the onus is on her to make the first move. Or it could be used for blame, if you want to blame someone, to blame for something. He'll always bear the onus of having caused the accident. So the word of the day is onus, O-N-U-S.
Thank you, Gordon. Well, as Toastmaster, the onus is on me to keep things moving. So what we will have next is our table topics. Table topics is the part of our meeting where we have the opportunity to practice thinking on our feet. The participants that are called up here today to respond to the question that will be posed to them will basically have the amount of time to prepare that it takes them to get from their seat up here to the lectern. Our table topics master today is Jerome Manigan, so help me welcome Jerome.
Thank you, Steve. Monday is President's Day, a national observance originally created to commemorate George Washington's birthday. In 1968, onus was placed on federal legislatures to enact legislation which named Monday, the 3rd Monday in February, as a time to honor George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and all other men who have served as president. I am going to ask Mary Ames to come up to answer this first question. Please explain why it is important for our nation to set aside a day each year to honor the men who have served in the highest elective office in the world.
Ooh, that is tough for me. Okay. To me, it is important because our men are out there fighting for our country. They're trying to protect our country. And to me and to everyone else, if it wasn't for our soldiers protecting our country, we would be in a big, big mess. So thank goodness for our country, our soldiers.
Darren Henderson, would you please come up? Darren, we have all heard the story that George Washington, when asked who chopped down the cherry tree, replied, "The onus is on me." I cannot tell a lie. I chopped down the cherry tree. Darren, why do you think it is important for leaders to be persons of honesty?
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, I think that the presidency is the most important job, quite honestly, in the world, because the United States is the preeminent power in the world, and thus our leader is really the single most powerful person in the world. And I think honesty is very important because a president, as our past speaker just mentioned, asks people to give their lives for the country and for various causes. And if that president is not trustworthy, it's very difficult for a person to give their life or sacrifice for that particular person. And I think we've seen in the past where we've had very good presidents who were not maybe as trustworthy as they could have been, and even though they had very good policies or very good other qualities, the fact that they were perhaps not as trustworthy as they could have been really affected how successful they were in office. Unfortunately, what I've seen in our current political environment is that it's become more and more difficult for an honest person. Hey, this sounds like a cliche, but I think it's more and more difficult for a completely honest person to be elected president just because of the way that the political spectrum seems to go right now. So I think it's very important for us to have an honest president, but unfortunately I think the way our politics is moving, it becomes more and more unlikely that we will get an honest president the way our politics are currently maneuvered. Mr. Toastmaster?
Thank you very much, Darren. John Humpert, the onus is on you to bring this segment of today's meeting to a close. John, who, in your opinion, is the most noteworthy president of the United States, and would you please tell us why you feel that way?
Fellow Toastmasters and our folks watching in, I feel that our best president, as many of us know, is Abraham Lincoln. He has an incredible tale that I think a lot of us relate to in some way or another, in that we don't always get everything that would be a creature comfort as we grow up. And out of those things that we lack, for instance, Lincoln certainly didn't grow up in a comfortable household. He didn't have his mother for half of his childhood. She died when he was quite young. He made the most of those shortcomings or those uncomfortable things about life. He had a passion for the unity of our nation. And even though he lost a child while he was in office, even though he had generals fighting on the Union side of the Civil War, and he couldn't really get them to spring into action the way he wanted, he held on to that vision. And in this country, we understand how important it is to have a vision and to push forward with it. He's an excellent example of doing that over the long term. Jerome.
Thank you very much. Now, the onus is on all of us to, on Monday, reflect about the people we have elected to the highest elective office in the world, and to be very grateful for the contributions and the leadership they have provided for our great country and, by extension, to all of the world. Mr. Toastmaster, the onus of moving this meeting along is now on you.
It's on me. Thank you, Jerome. Thank you for very good table topics. At this point, we will begin our prepared speech portion of our meeting today. Our first presentation is coming from the Persuasive Speaking Advanced Manual. It is project number 2 which addresses conquering the cold call. In that, the title of her speech is Clear Communication. And with that, help me welcome Carol Cormeling. Carol?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our most welcome guest. My speech today is on conquering the cold call. This is sort of part 2 to the first one, where I visited a company that had a need, and I was just telling them how to fill that need. My speech today, conquering the cold call, the person does not even know that they need my services. So I am to practice my listening skills and find out what I need to know before I even present what I am going to be suggesting that they need for their company. Thank you, Mr. Humphrey, for seeing me today.
Have a seat.
I just am really impressed with what I've been reading on the internet about harmony quality. You emphasize quality, and I was wondering, how do you do that? Or how do you emphasize, how do you make your employees quality employees?
Well, what we do, Carol, is we're always engaged in what we call feedback loops. So we are doing a little bit of work. A lot of what we do is we're breaking new ground in our field, and as we go a little bit in that direction, we stop and have people that are knowledgeable about what's going on and what we're trying to do have a look at it, tell us where we need to change what we're doing, where we need to correct something, where we need to go in order to avoid some problems. So, and then we go a little bit further and then do the same kind of feedback all over again, and that's how we work to ensure quality in what we do.
So how, on the training of your employees, how are they trained to deliver this quality?
What they do is, of course, it's very important that the employees are open to suggestions, and it's important also that they listen, pick up some cues. Facial expressions can say things that words won't, and so as they develop their product, they have to find that time, that particular point where they need to stop and get that feedback again.
So you must have some type of training program when they come in. Is that done on-site? Is it done off-site? Or
We do that when we gather for our regular meetings, which happen at least quarterly, where, for instance, we'll demonstrate within the scope of the meeting, within the framework of the meeting, some kind of work where we really need the whole audience's, that particular group, we need their feedback. And so there in front of all of us, we have a model of what we're trying to do on a smaller scale in the projects that we're not discussing that day. So it's just a constant reminder for folks to do a little bit, see what they need to work on, and proceed from what they've learned, rather than working for weeks and months on end and then coming up with something that's just not marketable.
I'm wondering, it sounds like most of the training is done through your meetings, and I'm wondering, I know I've been in a lot of meetings, and generally only about half of the people speak up at the meeting. Do you find that everyone participates, or do you have that same percentage that about half of the people will speak up and share, and the others sit back and are afraid to say something?
Well, probably at a typical meeting it is a 50%, and we try to tinker along the edges so that it's a different group, a different 50%. Part of the qualifications for someone coming into the business, though, is that they're the kind of person that will react and share their thought, sometimes you know, you know how the brain is. Sometimes you're not quite sure of how appropriate this comment is, but you know you have to share it anyway. And that's a quality that we stress as people come into the company.
Well, that's great. And are they learning leadership qualities while they're learning the communication qualities?
That's probably not a high point of what we do. The communication is probably higher in priority than the leadership, although I suppose some measure of leadership comes through with that process.
Well, it sounds like you're doing fine, because the seamless transition that I read in on the computer about your company, that really appealed to me, the seamless transition. And I know that communication is very important, because it's well-known fact that people who do well in communication rise further and faster in their jobs. And I'm with the Toastmasters International, that is a communication and leadership organization, and training can be more than your quarterly meetings. It can be weekly, where the people are learning better how to communicate with not only the managers, but with the customers also. And it's a very minimal cost. I don't know if you've ever sent people outside the company for any type of training, or if you do it all inside, but it is a very inexpensive, and it's a training that they're constantly using, and they learn to speak up.
Okay, I see. What is involved with that program?
Well, I happen to have a brochure here, and one of the main things, clear communication. Every organization needs it, and the clear communication, the people will learn to give better sales presentations when they're out presenting. And one of the things that I think is so important, and it sounds like your employees are already tuned into listening. So
We could always use more sales.
great. They will hone their management skills and know how to organize a team effort. There's no I in team. And someone said, no, there's only M for me. I think Gordon said that. They will know how to offer constructive criticism. They will know how to give feedback that will help the other person grow and develop hidden talents they may not even realize that they have. They will more effectively present their ideas, and your meetings, to learn how to conduct a meeting that will not take an hour, that you can accomplish everything in a half an hour. I think that's very important to know how to do that. They will listen better, and they will develop their leadership potential. And these are some of the offerings that in Toastmasters, what we have is a meeting that they meet once a week, generally over the lunch hour. They present speeches, they give feedback on the speeches. They also learn leadership, because every role at a meeting is a leadership role, in that they're learning something that will apply to their job. And it's very inexpensive. The company, normally when a company sponsors a club, some companies pay the dues for the employee, and others have the employee pay the dues. And it's a very minimal cost.
I see. Tell me a little bit about the leadership potential that's developed. It's mentioned here. What does that mean?
The leadership means that the person knows how to make decisions and is able to take a leadership role where they're able to know what to do when they need to lead.
Okay.
They have the free course that they know how to
Okay.
be in the leadership position.
Because I know we have some folks that at times when they're meeting with a customer, I notice that a lot of times the customer is telling us what else we could do. And as my employees are sitting there, they don't really realize that they could be generating some more business, and how do you do that? And I'm wondering if the leadership potential here would give them some kind of notion about what to do when they hear that a customer really wants us to do more work for them, but doesn't come around to saying it. Does that play into this?
That definitely plays in. We have something called table topics. It's impromptu speaking where a person is asked a question not of their choosing, and they have 1 to 2 minutes to answer that. And thinking on your feet helps you to develop better thinking skills. And when a customer asks, they will have some idea of what to do to help that customer to meet the customer's request
Okay.
or desire.
Yeah, a lot of times it's a discussion. The customer doesn't even realize that they're basically advertising to us, hey, here's more business. We have to listen carefully, and figure out what the customer is really trying to say in order to put together a proposal that will meet that need. And so, is there any other leadership things that Toastmasters does so that people realize you give me this circumstance and I where's the positive outcome? Is there anything in Toastmasters like that?
Of course there is. Yes, there is. We have an entire leadership manual that teaches people how to listen and function, how to set goals, how to give feedback. We have all in the leadership manual that helps the person. As they are reading each of these projects in the leadership manual, they will learn how to react to the person, respond rather than react to the person, to respond.
Okay, because I'm looking for like a take charge kind of sense that our employees do take charge, and they come back with a proposal idea, and the proposal turns into new business.
They should definitely build their confidence that they will be able to do that. I would be quite surprised if they were not able to come back with the deal, closing the sale.
Okay. What are the next steps to learning more and for employees seeing more about how this clear communication and Toastmasters, how that works?
We have brochures that you could put out for feelers to let people know about Toastmasters. Toastmasters is the best kept secret in the world. We're one of the largest organizations. We have over 300,000 members in 90 countries around the world, and yet people are not that familiar with Toastmasters. So we have brochures that you can give out, and the next step would be to have a demonstration meeting where you bring Toastmasters in and have all the employees that may be interested, and we would demonstrate what an actual Toastmaster meeting is. And the people do have the opportunity the ones that have the courage to get up in front of people would have the opportunity to answer the table topics questions.
Well, I was just wondering how I was going to help grow the business a bit, because first quarter is coming up here soon, and it sure would be nice to have a little bit extra oomph in there. This sounds like this could be put together fairly quickly. How quickly could a demonstration meeting come together?
It could come together, you set the date, and we could be there within the next few days, the next week, we can move as quickly as your company is ready to have us move.
How much will this demonstration meeting cost?
The demonstration meeting is free. It does not cost anything. If an employee wants to join or your company wants to join, the dues are $27 for 6 months. Then there is a one-time new member fee of $20. So for $47, and sometimes a company will charge another $1 for supplies with the company. So it's very inexpensive, and
Oh yeah, I thought you were going to tell me a number in 4 digits or something. $27 and.
right. It would be the initial cost.
Are you sure this is effective?
Yes, it is. I can give you testimonials. In fact, in here.
Are you a Toastmaster?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yes, I'm a lifetime Toastmasters. This tells you all about Toastmasters, and it has different companies that are the Toastmaster fact sheet and how you can capitalize on the corporate connection with your employees. And we have brochures like this that you may put around the company so that your employees will know about it. And I will leave this with you, and How soon do you think that you would like to set up the date since your report is coming in, your quarterly?
Well, we have a meeting in the middle of March. That's, I know that's kind of a short time frame.
No
3 or 4
problem.
weeks. Would that be enough time?
That would be enough time.
Well, we would like to put aside some time. How much time do we need for a bare bones demonstration meeting?
About an hour.
About an hour.
Mhm.
Okay. Could you cut it a little bit shorter if we needed to cut that a little bit?
How much shorter?
15 minutes? 45? Could you do it in 45 minutes?
It would not be the best, but we could do that.
You'd do that.
But an hour would be better.
Okay. All right.
An
Well,
hour would be better.
then let's do that. I'm trying to think. Which day is it? The 14th. I think that's a Friday.
Friday the 14th would be wonderful.
Okay.
What time of the day would you prefer?
Scratch, not the 14th. Make it the next week, the 21st.
The 21st?
And this will be a meeting that will is going to follow lunchtime.
Follow
So
lunch.
1 p.m.
1
You
p.m.,
know how it
okay.
is with the little malaise that people. So the onus is on you to energize folks right after lunch. Would that be a
I'm telling
problem?
you that we will energize them.
Okay.
They will leave there raring to go.
Well, that's what I'm looking for. All right.
Thank you, John,
very much, Carol.
and I'll be in contact with you before the 21st and give you some more information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol, for that presentation on conquering the cold call, and your speech was entitled Clear Communication. Our next speaker will be giving us a presentation out of the Basic Communication and Leadership Manual. She's actually working on project number 3 out of that manual, which focuses on getting to the point. Her speech is entitled Moving from Confusion to Focused Action. Help me welcome Anita Barron.
Thank you, Toastmaster and fellow Toastmasters in TV land. Welcome. I want to start, most everybody, whenever we're doing anything, there's a point where we start something and we don't know what to do. You know, we've never done it before, and it's confusion, and oh my gosh, what do I do? So what we need to do in anything we're starting new and we don't know about is we need to do pattern action steps that are notorious for being able to accomplish whatever we're striving to do. And there's literally a science or pattern action steps for everything that we do. We just haven't tapped into that yet. And so what we need to do is move forward into that. We can do it, this topic is about moving from confusion to focused action. And we can go everything from losing our dreams, which is a very personal thing, to losing people, which obviously is a very physical thing, to losing animals, which is a physical thing. Well, what do you do when you lose your dreams? There's personal development out there. There's, and the internet has just exploded our education because we all know where to go now. We can run to the internet and educate ourselves on whatever we're trying to figure out. And so there's actually groups that you can access, which is like Toastmasters that are meeting on a weekly basis that you can access locally. The sgrgroups.com, is one. What do you do when you lose a person? Well, all right, we may not have that expertise, but there are people in our community that all understand how to do it because they've done it so many times. Did you know that a hiker, the experts, the people that are out there, the law enforcement and everybody that go out there and look for these people, a backpacker, whenever they're out hiking, they will be found most likely on or near an established trail because they know that because so many of them's been lost, and when they find them, there they are. Hunters, they're usually found deep in the woods. They don't, venture very far. They're deep in the woods. Alzheimer's patients, they're typically within a quarter of a mile of where they became lost. So there is a pattern science and action steps that these people that are expert in this know how to accomplish. Well, what about animals? If you call the police, they're going to go, we got these lost people we're going to work on, but good luck, So you're kind of on your own, and the onus is upon yourself. to go educate yourself. And the first thing, obviously, is to go to the internet, because the up-to-date information is there. And so there's 4 major things that you need to do before this happens, okay? And whenever you get an animal, it's like having a baby. You probably need to do, learn the CPR and first aid, because kids get into stuff. So there's certain things that you need to do when you get your first pet, Fido or Fluffy. One, you always need an ID tag and a collar on the animal. Doesn't matter if it's always indoor, never been outside, it only takes once. They slip out past you and they're gone. If it's a bad weather and they're scared of thunderstorms, they're gone, The second thing, this is catching on, but it's very, very new, is microchipping. And that is a permanent ID that it's actually injected with a needle in between their shoulder blades on the back. So if they pull out, Fluffy pulls out the collar, it's gone. It's a breakaway collar, hopefully, for a cat anyway. And so basically they'll pull off the collar whenever somebody finds them. Who knows who it belongs to? It's not talking to me. It won't tell me. And so the microchip, there's a scanner, and they just run it over the back of the neck, back of the shoulders, and essentially that will give them an ID. You've registered, and that's another key thing. You got to register the ID, or else it does no good, because there's a number, but I don't know how to get to the people. So there's a registration for whatever company that makes that microchip. The fourth thing, then the registration is the third thing, obviously, but the fourth thing is to go to the internet, something like lostpet.org. I mean, you just do a Yahoo or Google search and, lost pets, and you'll come up with all kinds of information. But, I'm sure everybody's heard, well, if you lose your pet, you place a lost ad in the paper. You put flyers in the neighborhood where, you live, or you lost him. And you visit the local shelters. That's very important still, no matter, because there are county shelters that are open mission, and they will keep them for as long as they can. But when the next animal comes in and that cage is needed, kitty or puppy is going to be put down. So euthanized, killed, whatever you want to call it. It's still dead. All right. So these are very critical things to do. And yet, there are the science of lost animals, just like hikers and Alzheimer's and those type for people, the patterns. Cats behave differently than dogs whenever they're lost. Even within the cat, the group, they behave differently based on their temperament. So they've defined a number of things, and this is all on the the lostpets.org. Lostapet.org, I'm sorry. There's the curious clown cat. That's the kitty that runs up to anybody. I don't care if you're a stranger, never met, anything. I am there, So that kitty's going to travel further than the careless cat. The cat that says, it's a human, who cares, Those type of cats, they're going to act differently than the cautious cat. That cautious cat, they don't come out whenever a stranger comes into your house. All right, so they're going to hide. They're going to be within your realm of your house, a few neighbors over, underneath the deck, really underneath. All right, but they're going to act differently than a catatonic xenophobic cat, which is afraid of everything. Those cats are basically catatonic. Whenever they get lost, they freeze, and they'll stay there for days. And even if they hear their owner, they won't come out. So you do a live trap, have a heart trap. Put the food in there. Whenever they get hungry enough, they will venture out when it gets slow, about 3 o'clock in the morning, and they'll try to get food. But they'll trip the door, and then you catch them. And they'll act wild, the feral cats, because they're scared. They're just scared out of their mind. Dogs, they usually run. And so, usually somebody will see a dog. Now, if it's like a pit bull, they may not pick that one up. They'll say, it's in the neighborhood somewhere. But for the little dog, they'll say, oh, poor little, Fido, we need to help him. And they'll pick that one up. So that's depending on, again, then you go into the behaviors of who finds the animal and the behaviors of who lost the animal. Is the person that lost the animal going, Fluffy will come home. I'm not going to worry about it. Those critical first days are so precious. And so the person that says, somebody stole my cat, I'll never find him. Well, you're giving up. You don't give up because those critical days are so precious. So again, you educate yourself. The onus is upon us to educate ourselves about our animals. We ID, we collar, we microchip, we register that microchip, and then we go to the internet to educate ourselves. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be giving us a presentation out of the Basic Communication and Leadership Manual. She is working on project number 5 in that manual, which focuses on the use of body language. The title is Living Perfectly, and I'm anxious to hear this speech by Sheila Mudd Baker. Help me welcome Sheila.
Mr. Toastmaster, I don't know about you, but every year, in fact, actually about twice a year, I come to the conclusion I'm not living as perfectly as I could live. In fact, sometimes it's every day I feel that way. So I thought about this recently when I read an absolutely wonderfully funny book called Living Biblically. And it was the story of a man who decided to take the Bible and go chapter by chapter and do every single thing that the book said. However, he didn't stone anybody, he didn't kill anyone, so that was good. And to make his wife feel better, he didn't take any new wives. But beyond that, he tried to follow as closely as it could. He grew his hair long, he wore only white clothes, no mixed fabrics. He continued, he went all the way from the Old Testament through the New Testament. He had an advisory council of priests and rabbis, etc. The idea, of course, is to write a book. And it changed him profoundly. And I started to think, what would it be like if I was so spiritually attuned that I could be as perfect as possible? Now, obviously, this guy just made his wife crazy at the end of the year because he was always doing odd things like building a hut inside their living room in Manhattan, which didn't go over real well. But lots of us have ideas. Like we have leaders, gurus, spiritual leaders, priests, ministers, rabbis, imams. We have people that we want to follow. So I've thought about this, and I thought I will read and read and read and read and read. And what I came to the conclusion is spiritually, I'm a mess. That's all there is. That spiritually and ethically, I have a fair idea of where I should be, and it's up here, and I'm somewhere about here. Now, at the rate I'm going, that means that I'm about a third of the way up. I would have to live to be about 200 years old in order to be perfect ethically and spiritually. So I hope there's such a thing as reincarnation, because I have about 10,000 more lives to go. Secondly, as an American, I'm physically aware. We are everywhere we go. What do we see? Prevention magazine, pictures of gorgeous people that we aren't. Oprah magazine, in which gorgeous models are showing us $300 shoes on perfect little feet, and I wear size 11s. They don't exist for me. And books like You, Staying Young by Doctors Roizen and Oz, in which I have discovered that I should be exercising 7 days a week, doing strength exercises, aerobic exercises, stretching exercises. I should be watching every single thing I eat so I have the right percentage of carbohydrates, only the good ones, of course, the right fats, the right proteins. I should be balancing them perfectly. I should be taking the right vitamins and minerals. I'm in trouble. I can see this already, because my idea of a great week is to go and exercise 4 times a week for 30 minutes at Curves. For those of you who haven't been to Curves, it's a lot more fun than it is exercise. I mean, I do get a lot of exercise. I can exercise with the best of them, but I'm not a great physical specimen. I'm not out there walking, running every day like people who are great physical specimens. Thirdly, I see that financially, because that's another form of living perfectly in this world and the next, may perhaps, is I am not a good steward for my own money. I am a drunken sailor, let's face it. When it comes to spending money, I just keep spending until someone stops me, which is usually the bank or the credit card, etc. And I've been reading all sorts of books on what I should be doing. I should have at least 6 months set aside for emergencies. I should have a retirement plan that will keep me in a style I would like to be accustomed to. Yes, all of that is true. If I have even $1 in my checking account at the end of the month, I'm very happy. Third, the next area where I've discovered I am missing, but I want to be more perfect, is environmentally. Think of all the things we do environmentally. I know I drive my car a lot. I'm polluting the world. I buy things in plastic bags. I use plastic water bottles. Oh, I know that I personally have ruined third world countries, that people will not be eating, breathing, etc. because of what I've done. So I've made all sorts of attempts to be better at that. So, as far as staying young, you staying young, I am now taking vitamins every day, and I do exercise 4 times a week now instead of 5 or 6 or 7 like I should. Unlike the person who tried to live perfectly in the Oprah magazine, I just read her article in which at the end of the month people said, "Oh my goodness, you look so fabulous." I'm happy if someone says, "You don't look a day older than you did last week." That will make me very happy. Now, when it comes to being environmentally perfect, I'm probably not going to give up my car until it gets too old, and then I'll buy a car that's environmentally friendly. By that time, we'll probably all be electric by the time I use up this car. But when it comes to being a little more environmentally friendly, unfortunately, my prop fell on the ground. So, here it is. I have given up plastic bags. It doesn't always work because I sometimes forget to get it, but I carry around this bag for carrying everything. So I have stopped buying things that come in plastic bags, and I have given up my water bottles, which is very irritating because I keep looking for my water bottle. Instead, I put a filter on my tap, so I'm more environmentally friendly. I finally visited my financial counselor who is helping me work out a budget. So here's my problem. Now that I'm going to be much, much better financially and physically, what should I do to be more spiritually okay? I decided it was enough just to be self-satisfied. I am going to be as close to perfect as a human being can be without being too uncomfortable. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Sheila. Now we'll start our evaluation portion of the meeting, and I would like to introduce our general evaluator for today's meeting, Linda Ketchum. Help me welcome Linda Ketchum. She'll be introducing her evaluation team.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. It is now my honor to invite the evaluators up. One of the reasons we do evaluations as Toastmasters is that it allows us to develop those skills that we can use in our business life and our personal life on giving feedback to people and helping them know areas where they can improve in, and to give it in a way that people actually hear it and it is done from a space of upliftment rather than beating them into the ground, which I'm sure is, as a federal employee for 25 years, I've had a few of those evaluations. So my first evaluator is Laura Lee. Would you please come up and give us our evaluation for Carol Carmelin?
Well, Carol, I'd heard about, but I hadn't heard a project for the conquering the cold call. And the first question is about how did you explain
the cold call process before the actual sales pitch began. And what I found very interesting about that is that you focused more on the listening to what your customer had to say instead of just focusing only on the force and the persuasive part of getting your point across, which is probably, if you analyzed it, maybe one of the reasons a lot of cold call pitches either don't work or aren't as effective as maybe they could be, because you have to listen to what your customer needs for you to figure out which effective words you need to use to be persuasive. So you need to listen, then persuade, not go in with persuasion and not worry or not listen to them as well. So I thought that was very effective. Your questions were effective for eliciting information. You had done some homework ahead of time, visiting the website, being familiar with with your customer's operation, and seeing ahead some of the needs that Toastmasters could fill, so you had an idea what you could do for them, even though your customer at that point doesn't know what you can do for them. Did you focus your questions on helping the buyer discover that a problem exists? Yes, you did, because your buyer at first was more focused on the management team and meetings and that sort of thing, which is the what's in it for me. That's obviously where he probably spends most of his times, or in the meetings where only 50% of the people are speaking up. But then later, as the subject came around and he said, well, we need to make more sales. We're not in the business of making meetings. Well, some of them might be, but not really in the business to have meetings. That's the spinning of the wheels. We're in the business to sell our good and sell our products and our services. So then you were able to take the focus of the sales pitch away from the management meetings and that sort of thing, down to the actual sales component of what do your salespeople do, what terms do they use to be more effective, thinking quickly on their feet and using table topics as an example to give them that practice when they're talking to the ultimate customer. You did not bring up Toastmasters at all as your product until after you had talked for a while and were sure that your product would be able to fit his needs and how you were going to relay your products and services to him effectively. Any objections or concerns that the buyer may have raised, he raised up the issue of needing more sales. And actually, I thought at that time, you sort of missed a little bit of an opportunity, because you continued to talk more about the management, and I thought that would have been a better opportunity for you to say, well, for your sales people who are actually working with your valued customers, table topics can help them be more effective when they speak by leaving out the ahs and the ums and the filler words, and be more persuasive, choosing the right words to get their point across and having a better percentage of their sales being effective. What could you have said that would have been more effective? The dollar amounts on the training costs, it was brought up at one point, but you didn't really have a true dollar amount. When you were talking about maybe you bring somebody in for training, or you send people outside for a day-long class or a weekend class, those can run hundreds, if not several thousands of dollars per person when you send a management team of 10 or whatever. So I thought maybe the dollar amount could have come up. I was thinking maybe it might have come up later again when you mentioned how inexpensive Toastmasters is, but it didn't. Companies, governments, whoever you're working for, everybody is very cost conscious. So that would have been a great way to help persuade him that this was effective for him. What did you do well? You had your materials and flyers available. You were ready. He took it a little further in actually wanting to go to the demonstration meeting part, and you were ready with all of that information. When he asked about the timing, an hour, which I think most companies that is cooperative, but you don't know always what the situation is going to be at the get-go. And when you talked about maybe the 45 minutes, your answer was actually negative. That's not the best situation. You can think that, but don't say it. Well, 45 minutes, we can do 45 minutes, but really an hour would give us the best opportunity to show what we can do for your company. But great conversation. Thank you very much, John, for being a willing participant and being so oblivious to the fact that Carol's a lifetime Toastmaster. Thank you.
And now the onus is on Darren to give us an evaluation of Anita's speech. Help me welcome Darren.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, and especially Anita. The onus on you today was to get to the point. That was the title of your speech today, or the topic of your speech today. And two of your main objectives were to select a speech topic and determine its general and specific purposes, and to project sincerity and conviction and control any nervousness you may feel. And I think you did a great job on both those points. It was quite obvious early on that your general purpose was to inform us, and your specific purpose was to inform us on how to find a lost pet. Now, interestingly enough, I didn't understand your specific purpose until about a minute into the speech, because you talked about some general things as far as, I think the words you used were move from confusion to focused action. And you talked generally about some of those types of things and talked about lost people and how people react when they get lost. And about a minute or so into the speech, you kind of transitioned and let us know you're actually going to talk more about lost pets. And I thought you gave very excellent information regarding how to find lost pets. You gave us 4 key things that we really need to do when pets are lost. And, ID tag, microchip, registration, lostpet.org. I knew of very few of those things. I think you did a great job of informing us of different things we can do to prevent our pets from being lost and also to find them more quickly when they do get lost. I thought you gave some great information regarding the patterns of cats and dogs. I'm not a cat person, I'm a dog person, so I found it interesting to know that there's so many different personalities of cats. And so I thought that the body of the speech was excellent. Also, you did have an opening and a closing, which is also very important in any speech. And moving on to the presentation, I thought you were very comfortable up here. From the moment you got up here, it's very obvious that you were very comfortable at the lectern. You were not nervous at all. You had very minimal use of notes, and one thing I really liked, you had great eye contact and also great hand gestures. So I thought you did your presentation is very advanced for a third speech. I thought it was very, 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 very well done. On some things you can do a little bit better, one thing I mentioned, you did have an opening, a body, and a closing. But the opening, at some point I did get a little bit confused because your opening led me to believe you were maybe going to go in a different direction. Then you did transition towards the lost pets. So I think one opportunity you could have used is, I personally lost a dog when I was probably 9 or 10. I'd venture to say that many people in the audience have lost pets at various times. You could have used that opening to kind of cater towards that emotion of losing a lost pet in some way to say, I'm sure you've lost a pet, or maybe give some personal story. And that would have let people know what you're going to talk about, or let people know your specific purpose up front, but also it would have kind of added a little bit more impact to the beginning of the speech. The other thing, one thing I thought you did great was you had notes up here, but you did not use them. You used them very minimally, but at one point you did get kind of lost in the speech. And I thought, with the eye contact you had, it was very obvious that you made very minimal use of the notes, but because of the way I think you had them organized, when you did need them, it was very difficult to find your place. So I think just a little different take on how you organize the notes will definitely help you out, because I'd say you probably used the notes very, very minimally during that speech, and the one time you did need them, you couldn't find your place. But overall, it was a very informative speech. Once again, your presentation was much further advanced than you'd expect out of a person with 3 speeches under the belts. So I thought you did a very good job. Another thing I'll mention, I think your voice and just your overall style are very pleasant to listen to. So I really enjoyed the speech, and I really I'm looking forward to future speeches from you. Thank you.
And our last evaluator will be Veronica of Sheila's speech. Please help me welcome Veronica.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. Welcome, television audience, fellow Toastmasters, and especially Sheila. What a joy to listen to your speech. Thank you. Now, clearly, in case you haven't guessed, this is not Sheila's 5th speech. She is an expert both in speaking and also as an actress. So I will say that I thoroughly enjoyed your speech. However, it is part of my duty to suggest things that I think might help it improve. But first, I will tell you everything that I really liked about it. Your gestures, I know how difficult it is to have natural looking gestures. Many times I stand here like this, and that's my natural gesture. So Sheila's gestures looked natural, and it takes a lot of time to actually have expressive natural gestures. So that was just, you got an A+ for that. Really well done. Your eye expressions were great. Your eyes open. You talked about a person growing their hair long. You talked about the tent in the middle of the Manhattan high rise, whatever it was. It was a great story, great gestures. Your eye contact, however, although you touched each one of us, you touched each one of us very quickly. And it made me feel like you were a little bit more nervous than your experience would say that you would be. In that, that's the only thing that I can think of that was, could be improved. The other thing, and also it's a little bit more generous. If you actually look at person till you finish your your thought or your point of view, then they feel like you've actually touched them and that you actually care about each one in the audience. It's just a thought. And then also, I loved how you said, "Sped like a drunken sailor." It was great. It was really great. And I also have to tell you that your coloring today was just perfect. It was really, it's a winter time here in the studio. It's cold, and you came out with these beautiful fall colors, and it matched your hair. It's just, it makes a difference. Now, the other thing is that in terms of body movement, we're a little bit restricted here in the studio in that the camera is not able to move. But I thought it would have been fun and would have really showcased your acting talents a little bit better had you moved the lectern, because I didn't think you needed your notes, and moved it aside, and then we could have been able to better see your whole body gestures. You had excellent use of props. They were right here. It was very well thought out. The only thing we want to be careful of is when we pound on the lectern, it kind of reverberates throughout the whole universe. All in all, just really well done. A great speech. You're well beyond your 5th speech, and I think that this is an example for people of what they can aspire to, but certainly not to make them feel like they have to get this high by their 5th speech. Madam General Evaluator.
One of my responsibilities is to evaluate the evaluators, and I do want to say I think all 3 of them did a great job of using what we call in my home club the sandwich theory, where you say something good, you put your areas to improve in the middle, and then end with something good, something praiseworthy. And all of our evaluators did that. And this is something, again, that we can take into our personal lives and our professional lives when we are giving evaluations to others. That is one of the gifts of Toastmasters. It's something we stand here on Saturday morning and do, or whenever our club meeting is, yet it goes with us when we leave here, and it makes us better at whatever we're doing.
Thank you, Linda. Great evaluations. This is going to conclude our meeting, and I'll be turning it back over to our club president, Gordon Kelly.